Bismillah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala ashraf al-anbiya'i wal-mursaleen. Sayyidina Muhammad, Sayyidina al-awwaleen wal-akhirin, wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. So I just got a couple minutes here, and I was actually sitting here listening to Whitney Webb. Some of you may be familiar with her. She's kind of like a independent investigative journalist, and she was interviewing James Corbett, and they were talking about the 2024 election and the toss-up between Trump and Harris. Wa alaikum salam, Brian. You can check out so what I was talking about is actually, let's see if I can, hopefully you can, let's see, there we go. So that's what I was listening to. And in it, both of them referenced something that they called hopium. And so in particular, they were kind of talking about the Trump campaign and how they were, pitching a certain kind of line to, say, like libertarians, in which they would, put them on, kind of like putting a hook in a fish's mouth to, getting them hooked on the promises of something that's going to happen in the future, right? But they never really deliver. And I think, for me, and again, I'm not doing this to encourage, but just to more explain my actions, why why I'm not going to be voting in this particular election cycle. And generally, I've never voted. Like, I just don't vote. And that is, I feel like both of these candidates they have their own version of hopium, right? So they're going to go out to the masses and they're going to promise that they're going to do, this or that thing. Sorry, let me just center myself there. Right? They're going to promise this or that thing to the masses. And so, for those Muslims, I was watching Dr. Abdullah bin Hamid Ali, who was on Blogging Theology, talking with Paul Williams, kind of making the case that Muslims could at least consider Trump, right? And then, of course, we already know, we've seen, some people trying to say, well, you should, go with Harris. And my issue that I have is, how can you hold any of these accountable, right? So it's one thing for, it's one thing for a candidate to say, oh, I'm going to do this or that. So like one of the things that Dr. Abdullah had talked about was when Trump had met with these Muslims in Michigan, in the Detroit area. I think there was like a Yemeni imam or coalition. So anyway, he was meeting with these people, and they were saying like, well, this is our list of demands. And so like Dr. Abdullah was trying to say, well, at least these Muslims came to him, although I'm pretty sure Muslims that probably met with Harris probably also had I'm presuming they probably also had a list of demands. But anyway, saying, look, they had a list of demands, and Trump listened to them and kind of shook his head and said, yeah, sure, this all sounds, fantastic. My spidey sense tells me, though, however, that, one, Trump obviously is a lame duck president, because if he wins this time around, he's only going to be in for another 4 years. And what would be really the incentive for him to exert, which would have to be, a tremendous amount of, political energy to come through on his campaign promises. I don't personally, I just don't have a lot of confidence that would be able to come to fruition. And I don't see that he would have any terrible motivation, to do so. And to be, obviously he would not be the first politician that would say all kinds of things to get elected and then, not come through on them. And so I have yet to see whether it's in the case of Harris or even in the case of potentially Trump, how anybody could, what's the game plan to hold them accountable? And I think as it relates to the Green Party, I mean, I covered this the other day in the podcast, right? So I don't think you can go check that out, where Brother Dawud and I had talked about, some of my thoughts on the Green Party and why also I could not find, I couldn't muster the confidence to go with the Green Party for, a variety of reasons. And so my concern for this time around is, the hopium, right? This kind of almost, methadone-like synthetic hope. I mean, how ironic, like that's kind of like what Barack Obama was. Like, he ran on this, to use the same phrase we used the other day in the podcast, like connotation, no denotation. So Obama ran on this whole idea of hope, or hope and change. But, hope for what and what kind of change? So I really feel like because of the Palestinian situation, it has put us as a community in a particularly emotionally vulnerable state, and understandably so, that we may not think all of our steps through. And also, at the end of the day, this is, they've also, I think, done an incredible job of hyping this whole election thing, and that, life will go on after the election, and we have to have a game plan for that as well. So just don't go for the hopium. Don't be a hopium addict, and don't expect too much. If you obviously do decide to vote, don't expect too much. And if you are, if your persuasion to vote has been influenced by any particular group or movement, then I would engage that movement and ask them questions. What is your plan to hold, these candidates, responsible? So anyway, just I was enjoying that. If you can check it out, you might find the podcast there insightful from Whitney Webb. If you missed ours, we did again just a couple days ago. We did our podcast, episode 36 that we did, the one I just referenced. So you can check that one out as well. But it's time for Isha. Got to get the kid in bed. So inshallah, we'll maybe see you guys tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum.